Howdy.
How's it going, Andy?
It's going good, fellas. How you doing?
Doing well. For those of you who don't know, this is Andy Schectman, owner and president of Miles Franklin. Glad to have you back with us. It's been a little while.
Yeah, it's good to be back with you, fellas.
Yeah,
Thanks for being here.
a lot been going on. Husky usually keeps us up to date. Did we see a little dip in the market today, being what is it today, the 12th February?
I'd say a little dip. I know that it peaked at some point yesterday in the off market at 29.43 per Kitco. Andy, I know that this is a record for gold thus far.
Yeah.
Can you give us a little insight as to what the heck is happening?
Yeah, man. I mean, what's happening right now, I've been doing this for 35 years this month. And the stuff that I am seeing right now is really, truly unlike anything I've ever seen. There are things happening on the COMEX and the LBMA that just don't happen. The COMEX is the commodity exchange, the New York Mercantile Exchange, as an example, or the Chicago Commodity Exchange. These are the exchanges where everything is traded, from orange juice to gold futures and everything in between. And in particular, on the COMEX, the amount of deliveries that are coming into the system are so striking, so startling. Something's going on. And I don't know how long you want me to answer this question, because I can set the stage and answer it properly, or I can kind of just dance around it a little bit. But to give you an idea of the things that are happening, we can get deeper into it. Yeah. As an example, since November, the United States has gone, and I'll get the exact numbers. Here we go. So since November, the United States has gone from a net exporter of gold to a net importer. My entire career, we were net exporters. My entire career, gold would flee the Western vaults and move eastward. That was always what everyone would talk about, is that, quietly, slowly, the metal was being bled. Since 2020, I've been screaming to the world on over 5,000 podcasts that the COMEX and the LBMA were being bled dry due to the stupidity of our suppressing the prices of gold and silver with naked futures contracts. Screaming. To give you an idea of what I'm talking about, just off the top, JP Morgan is set to deliver $4 billion in gold to the COMEX. It's one of the largest shipments ever for the February contract. Since 2024, between 12 and 13 million ounces of gold and over 45 million ounces of silver have moved from London vaults to the New York vaults. This is something that we never ever see on the February gold contract alone. All right. So when you have a COMEX contract, it represents 100 ounces of gold. And most of my career, the contracts never stood for delivery. It's an option, right? Mm-hmm. Typically, we use COMEX, right? So if I have 1,000 ounces of gold in my warehouse and the price falls by $100, well, I just lost $1 million, right? Or excuse me, $100,000. Yeah. $100,000. If I sell short the exact same amount on COMEX and that same thing happens, it goes up by 100,000. So I'm market neutral. I'm always able to not speculate with my inventory, right? And so it allows me to be hedged and to transact business and have a large inventory and hold large amounts, buy back large amounts without risk of the market moving against me. So most of the contracts my entire career never stood for delivery. It was just a cash settle, or you close it out once the other side of the trade is fulfilled. Fine. Since 2020, we have seen, and largely I would argue because the West steps on the price of gold and silver, which we'll get into in a moment, steps on it through naked futures, shorting, massive rehypothecation, short, drive the price down by the commercial banks to support different things. In silver, I would argue it's the military industrial complex need for silver in high-tech weaponry. 500 ounces of silver in the cone of most of the high-tech missiles, like the Tomahawk cruise missile, has 500 ounces in the cone. Well, think of all the weapons from aerospace to high-tech missiles that the military industrial complex not only makes but sells all around the world to fund wars. they have been suppressing silver forever, and we'll talk about how they do that. And the same thing with gold, but only to support the illusion of the supremacy of the Western system, the strength of the bond market, the strength of the dollar, et cetera. There's something called Gibson's paradox, which is the inverse relationship between real interest rates and gold. And so for 30 years, when you step on gold, when you step on interest rates to maintain this illusion of prosperity through your home and your 401k and whatnot, you got to kill the canary, and that's the gold price. So they've stepped on gold forever, sold it. It always flowed eastward. So no one ever stood for delivery. All right, so check this out. February gold contract in New York, a record delivery, 59,296 contracts stood for delivery on the February gold contract. The next highest ever was in June of 2020, 47,132. That's 100 ounces per contract. It's a difference of 12,134 contracts, 12,134 times 100 ounces of gold. So someone stood for delivery for 5,929,600 ounces of gold. And someone stood for delivery, or people stood for delivery for 2,747 silver contracts, 13,735,000 ounces.
Wow.
Now there's this spread right now in New York where the delivery of contracts, the price of gold on a contract in New York for delivery is $82 higher than it is in London, right? London is actually back a spot right now, but here's the interesting thing. There's something called exchange for physical. So all of these banks in the West who have naked exposure on COMEX, what they're doing is they're rehypothecating. They're selling the same contract over and over and over and over and over again because no one ever stands for delivery. They print cash. But if people stand for delivery, pardon my French, but they're fucked. Because all of a sudden there's no gold there.
It's not there, right?
There's just the money they have to create this illusion. So now Trump says, well, we're going to put 10 or 25% tariff. So everyone is saying, give us back our gold. We need to get gold from London. So we take that contract, and because of its fungibility, we can send it to London and they ship us the gold. Now, the thing about it is that I think that the tariff thing is a ruse. And I'll explain why in a moment. I think it's a ruse. That's what everyone thinks, why all the metal's coming back. We got to cover those unbacked contracts that the commercial banks hold. I don't believe that, and I'll explain why. But now, since November, right? That's the election. All of a sudden, we're net importers, not net exporters. Right around the same time, something very interesting happened, and that is that, you know, in two and a half, 3 years ago, JP Morgan paid a $920 million fine to the Justice Department for manipulating the metals market. And it always blew me away that they were still allowed to be the custodian of the world's largest silver trust, SLV, along with BlackRock. Whatever, they paid a $920 million fine that year. Their trading desk, metals desk, made $1 billion that year. They walk away up $80 million, and they are still allowed to control the world's largest silver trust. Something interesting there, right? Well, HSBC Bank has always been the one that's controlled GLD, fourth or fifth largest stockpile of gold in the world. Right around the same time, guess who now controls GLD? That's right, agent of the central bank. If you ask me, JP Morgan and BlackRock are now custodians of GLD. They hold more gold, that being JP Morgan, in two of their vaults for GLD than half of the G20 countries on the planet. So, okay, so we have the ETFs now held by JP Morgan. We have everyone shipping back massive amounts of gold and silver from London, massive amounts, more so than we've ever seen before, ever, never, all coming home supposedly because of tariffs. What is gold? Gold is reclassified. We talked about this on the last episode as the world's only other tier 1 reserve asset by the Bank of International Settlements in 2019. It's as good as the U.S. Treasury, right? Who's been buying the treasuries? Well, it's not been the central banks. They've all been selling them. So we'll get to that in a moment. They've been accumulating gold, which has doubled the performance of the 10-year over the last 25 years and has no counterparty risk, right? Judy Shelton, I just interviewed her. She was Trump's nominee in 2016 to be the head of the Federal Reserve. She wasn't confirmed. She'll be on the Federal Reserve Board, is my guess this time, maybe even lead it once Powell is done. But the whole book is advocating for 50-year U.S. Treasuries backed by gold. And she said her and Trump spoke of it in the first administration, didn't happen, but it's her belief that on July 4th of 2026, he will issue them. Pegged to gold, 50-year Treasury, because that's the 250th year anniversary of the country. And she says he'll do it. I said, Judy, well, why the hell haven't we audited Fort Knox? She says it's a good question. Their answers are always lame. It's too expensive and logistically challenged. She said, we're the United States, for Christ's sake. Let's just pay the money and do it. So she advocates for auditing the Fed, auditing Fort Knox, and you can see that's moving in that direction right now. In fact, supposedly Ron Paul will be the one to audit the Fed. And I said to her, Judy, do you know that gold is held in every central bank balance sheet in something called the gold revaluation account? You know, that's actually the name of it on every central bank balance sheet. And the head of the Dutch National Bank for the last 3 years has been screaming, we need to revalue gold to offset our liabilities. It's on our balance sheet across all of Europe at $35. It's $42.22 on the US balance sheet. Still the old Bretton Woods numbers, never updated it. So he's saying we need to revalue gold to offset the liabilities on our balance sheet, because the way the laws are now, you can't do it. Members of the German Bundesbank saying the same thing. We bring it closer to home. Senator Cynthia Loomis from Wyoming advocating for the strategic Bitcoin account, speaking in Tennessee after Trump said, I'm going to float a bill to revalue the gold held in the Federal Reserve's gold revaluation account to a level sufficient enough to use the proceeds to buy Bitcoin. Scott Bessent, our new Treasury Secretary, his largest holding is gold. What did he just say yesterday? We're going to monetize the asset side of the balance sheet. Now, if you want to really get nauseous, grab a garbage can and look at the U.S. government's balance sheet. It's about $5 trillion. The largest asset of the U.S. government is student debt, about $1.456 trillion. It's 40+% of our assets. And it is an asset. It's a liability to our kids. It's an asset and a receivable to the U.S. government. You can't even file bankruptcy and get away from it. They passed a law. They'll take your Social Security. So that's not going to get monetized. Number two is military and military bases, the hundreds and hundreds we have around the world, the airplanes, the bullets. That's not going to get monetized. They do have land. That's number three. That could. But how about gold held in the revaluation account? That is now the only other tier one reserve asset in the world. And now the Treasury Secretary says we're going to monetize the asset side of the balance sheet. And now all of the gold is flowing home in record amounts that no one's ever seen in 35 years. Nothing like this. We're now net importers of gold. Judy says we're going to make 50-year treasuries backed by gold. Well, how the hell do you do that with gold where it is? Do you know that every $4,000 increase in the price of gold adds $1 trillion free and clear to the Treasury General account? And Trump wouldn't even need congressional approval. He'd say to Scott Bessent, Scott, tell Jerome Powell to revalue the price of gold right now. You put it at $12,000. You've just added $4 trillion to the balance, free and clear to the Treasury General account to offset your liabilities. Now, I'm not saying they're going to make it up to 140,000, which would completely offset the 36 trillion that we have, let alone forget about the unfunded liabilities.
Yeah.
But my point is simply this. Record deliveries, record intake, massive intake, tier one asset competing with U.S. treasuries. Bessent says we're going to do this. Judy Shelton says we're going to do this. Cynthia Loomis says we should do this. I believe in my soul that these tariffs and this discrepancy. One other thing I'll just mention, speaking of GLD, 16 tons just came out of GLD. The dummies, the talking heads say, oh, that's profit taking. Everyone's leaving GLD and going elsewhere. Bullshit, that is. What that is the insiders, the commercial banks who have baskets, it's called, they are able to redeem their shares for the metal. You and I can't. They can. So they're taking 16 tons worth of gold shares and redeeming it. So the number of shares decreases. Looks like people are leaving. No, it's the insiders pulling the metal out. One last thing about SLV, and then I'll take any questions you got. SLV has a 953 million ounce silver short position on it. the stupidity of being able to naked short an ETF is just the dumbest thing I've ever heard in the world. But you can naked short. I mean, you don't own the silver, you borrow the shares to short it. So the cost of borrowing those shares in the last 3 weeks has gone from 0.5% to 12%. Hard to get silver, isn't it? And the number of shares outstanding to borrow in the last 10 days has gone from 10 million to 10,000, a 99.9% reduction. Lastly, this is getting real. When you talk about the potential for a massive squeeze, I've never seen anything like it in my entire career. And so the talk of tariffs is what everyone's focusing on. My belief is this is a whole hell of a lot bigger, kind of like what he's doing right now that's freaking everyone out. Like, oh my God, I can't believe he's doing all this stuff. It's incredible. Even signing executive order to get rid of paper straws. It's that right? Shock and awe. I, honest to God, believe, because this is stuff you don't ever see, ever, never, that what he's trying to do is beat the bricks to the punch. I really believe he is going to remonetize gold. It's held in the revaluation account, use it to reliquify and peg treasuries to gold at a much higher price. And Judy even said to me, once that's done, we're going to issue stable coins off of it. This is a much bigger deal than just about anyone is talking about. I'm going out on a limb and saying it. Maybe I'm wrong, but you put all of these dots together, it's pretty hard for me not to say that, yeah, man, they're certainly setting it up for some sort of, either it be a sovereign wealth fund on the behalf of the U.S. government where gold goes to the moon. And what happens if gold goes to the moon, by the way? What happens to the dollar? It loses value in relation to gold. He wants a weaker dollar, doesn't he? Yes, he does. To me, that's where we're going, fellas. So I'll take any questions you have.
On the topic of the weaker dollar, what benefit does the weaker dollar have for America's stability?
The reality of it, it's bad. You don't want a weaker dollar. You want a strong dollar and strong interest rates to support a strong economy. That's the truth. He's looking at manufacturing, right? And onshoring our manufacturing and being able to sell to the world again. It's really not what you want. It's what got us in the problems to begin with. But you could argue we're so far past screwed in terms of financially that it's probably the best alternative. Otherwise, you reset the system. But look, you can't have high interest rates. If you have a strong dollar, you need to have high interest rates to support it. You can't have zero interest rates. It creates too much in the way of speculation, misallocation of capital and resources, and distortions in asset prices. That's the road we've been on for 30 years. And either you let interest rates go to where they're supposed to be, dictated by the realities of the market, and let Mother Nature cleanse the system like a forest fire, and it looks like shit, and you feel bad that everything died, and you come back 5 years later and it's stronger than ever. Well, we've never let that happen. In 2008, when everything collapsed, the Fed's balance sheet was 800 billion with a B. At its peak just a year ago, it was 9 trillion. So now it's about 7 trillion. All of that is in interest rate sensitive investments like treasuries and mortgage-backed securities, which suppress interest rates, which create more and more and more distortions. Yeah, I can buy that car at 72 months, no financing. That's easy, zero interest. And yeah, we can spend another $100,000 on the house. It's cheap money. And yeah, let's build another wing to our building and hire 60 more people because it's cheap money. And boom, interest rates go up 500 basis points in a year. And whoa, man, that's a different situation. So, but what does a weak dollar do? The only argument I could make would be that it helps our trade imbalance. But in the end, it doesn't really help the economy, in my opinion. Savers, in any case, lose in that environment. Let's put it to you that way. Right. It forces speculation.
Now, regarding BRICS, I've seen a lot of open dialogue begin between Trump and Putin, and I believe he's going to have a meeting with Xi Jinping. What is that about? Do you think this is maybe them sensing what's coming, or is there something else going on there?
I mean, I think Trump understands it. He's already threatened 100% tariffs if these countries continue, but they are continuing. Indonesia just became a full member. They have the largest nickel deposit in the world. Their president, Widodo, called for an OPEC-style cartel of rare earth metals. But Trump is trying to mend the fences. The last 4 years, we've done more to destroy this country than any external foe could have ever done based on our stupid policies. But I think the ball is too far past the Rubicon, so to speak. And I don't know that we can ever go back. These countries, I believe, will continue their de-dollarization, and they will continue to accumulate gold. And if they're smart, they will, because Trump wants a much higher gold price. They're the ones who have been buying it and accumulating it. You look at what Marco Rubio just said the other day. He said in 5 years, we won't be able to do sanctions anymore because no one's going to be holding dollars. There'll be too many other currency choices. So I think what it is finding some sort of a middle ground, because I think this is a trend that, look, when you have a fiat currency that's based on trust, how much trust do we really have? Sure, I think people trust maybe Trump in other ways that they did Biden, but I think they're also frightened by him, and they see that he'll sanction you if things don't go the way you want. Look, they're not tariffs when you say 100% tariff. If you do, that's a sanction. A tariff is something you put on to protect your manufacturing. But what manufacturing do we really have? And if you were to use tariffs and put a 25% tariff on every single product that comes into this country, it would only amount to several $100 billion, not much more than we gave the Ukraine. So it doesn't really fix. What you need to do is stop spending. And he isn't going to touch Medicare. He isn't going to touch Social Security. He won't. It's going to increase military spending. We're too far past. So yeah, Doge can knock off $1 trillion+. That still leaves $1 trillion in deficit spending. So he comes in at 36, he leaves at 40. I mean, the numbers are too big. Just check this out. Just in where did I write that down? In the next 12 years, I just wrote this down this afternoon. I thought it was worthy of mentioning. So by 2028, so in 3 years, we have 28 trillion in U.S. government bonds that mature by 2028. That mature. So we got to come up with 28 trillion just to pay what we already owe on the credit card. That doesn't even take into account the continuation of deficit spending that we have. And so who the hell is going to pay for that? Who's going to buy our treasuries in a world where we're choosing a weaker dollar and inflation over the tough decisions like cutting spending on Social Security and on Medicare and on government military pensions and on military, which we ain't going to do. So you look at that and say, well, that's 28 trillion. That doesn't take into account the $1 + $2 trillion deficit every single year that we need to issue in bonds in order just to keep the game going. So that's really kind of the problem here. And that's why Judy says you need to peg a 50-year treasury to gold. It's the only way you're going to get people who have any trust in a system that has lost it. And then you see Elon, what does he say? We're going to take and put all of the spending on the blockchain. Well, great. About time. That's transparency. What did Zoltan Pozsar said? Zoltan Pozsar knows the plumbing of the financial system better than anyone. He used to work at the New York Fed. He said, this is Bretton Woods 3. This is a system that will all be about transparency and commodities. Well, there's transparency right there. You can put the gold holdings on the blockchain as well and marry blockchain technology with a gold backing, and then issue stable coins off the blockchain as well back to those treasuries. And they will move towards stable coins instead of CBDCs because it inspires greater confidence in the stable coin system because it's more third party like Ripple or Tether or USDC. And the ironic thing is about all those dollar-based stable coins right now, they're all almost fully invested in treasuries. That's why the treasury is kind of not screwing with them, shall we say. They let Tether go and then twist their tit because they changed their balance sheet to all U.S. treasuries. As everyone else is selling treasuries, the countries, and buying commodities, the people fleeing the legacy system are supporting it by buying stable coins in the ecosystem, the crypto system, which are all backed by U.S. treasuries. And these stable coins have gotten mass adoption, but they will control the on-ramp and the off-ramp. It's the same thing as a CBDC. There's no anonymity, no privacy. It's kind of moving into a surveillance state. He's already said he's going to issue the 2020 ID, which for voter integrity. And that's a whole different rabbit hole that I don't really like. If you look who's behind it, it's kind of scary. Gates and the Rockefellers and the big Forgot the name of it. I always forget the name of it, but it's the big vaccine organization that's at the top of the food chain of vaccine organizations. But that's for election integrity. So anyways, the bottom line is that we're moving towards a system that I believe will be more based on blockchain, whether it be, I don't think it'll be a CBDC. It will be things more like stable coins issued off of gold-backed treasuries and that kind of thing. And gold, I really do believe, will be center stage to what's coming next, 1,000%. So when you ask me about the tariffs, I don't think he's going to put tariffs on gold and silver. Silver, I would be foolish and stupid to do it simply because it's in a deficit. We import 80% of the silver we need for industry. That would just be stupid. In terms of gold, to me, I think he's just kind of threatening it to get it all home as a ruse, but instead of draining the exchanges without that ruse. So like Blythe Masters, as an example, okay, JP Morgan's delivering $4 billion in gold, right, to the COMEX for the February contract from London. Blythe Masters used to run their metals desk, and there's an interview, you can Google it. She says JP Morgan doesn't have a house account, it's for customers. Well, who the F has $4 billion to buy gold? Maybe, could it be the U.S. Treasury or the Fed? Could it be? And we're net importers. Could it be that we're the ones sucking it back, pretending that it's all coming back to the unbacked commercial bank naked shorts because of a potential tariff threat? Or is it just our way of getting it all back without resistance? And the crazy thing about it, it's already defaulting in my mind. The LBMA, their trades for metal delivery is T+1. Trade plus 1 day, give me my metal. You know what it's running right now? 6 to 8 weeks back ordered. Well, but I thought it's there. What the hell are you talking about? No, we're too jammed up. That's interesting. So there are things going on behind the scenes right now, guys, that in my entire career I've never seen. And there's a fine line between conspiracy and reality. And I think we're treading it right now.
So how do you... your customers, have you seen any uptick since November? Has it been pretty much flat the same? Do you see more people, new people coming there buying?
I will tell you,
and or selling.
The American public has its head so far in the sand, it's not even funny.
Sure.
We've seen some enormously large orders. The volume of orders is way down industry wide. The premiums that are paid above melt value for every single item that I sell are at the lowest I've ever seen. It's the most contrarian indicator, the most significant contrarian indicator I've ever seen. Everyone is chasing shiny things like NVIDIA and Bitcoin. And you saw how fast NVIDIA and Bitcoin and cryptos can collapse.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't happen with gold, but everyone's chasing that shit. At the same time, the most well-informed, not only most well-funded, the most well-informed traders on the planet are at a rush for gold and silver to level no one has ever seen before, repatriating it. Over 40 banks have brought their gold home from the Bank of England and the New York Fed. Fast. So the Bank of England holds gold on behalf of the LBMA. The New York Fed holds it on behalf of the COMEX. Everyone's saying, give me back my gold. I want it. Something is happening with gold. But what happened in 2019? Oh, yeah. The most powerful bank in the world reclassified it as the world's only other tier 1 reserve asset next to treasuries. Do you see the path that we're taking here? The treasury market and the dollar have kind of, it's living on borrowed time, and a new system is coming, and it has to be pegged to legitimacy, not I promise, and opaque promises at that can be rehypothecated. They're not bearer bonds anymore. Who knows how much each treasury has been rehypothecated over and over and over and over and over and over. They just print the damn money to pay you, right? So the point of it is that you put gold backing married to blockchain, you have stability. You use a higher revalued gold price in order to make your balance sheet a little bit better off, to give you more options to start doing things to get your house in order. All of a sudden you're establishing confidence. And let's not forget, Roosevelt, that's the executive order right there. He confiscated gold in April of 1933 and paid everyone $20.56 for the $20 gold coin. And 56 cents back then was a lot of money. And everyone was psyched. And then he devalued the dollar by 30% and gold went to $40. Just like that. They did it in 1971 when we closed the gold window at $35 an ounce. The market has revalued it today, even with all the suppression, to 2,900. We don't know where gold should be because it's been stepped on and suppressed forever, from the London gold pool now to the Western central banks, all of it to support the illusion of strength of a Western system that has suppressed interest rates for so long, that has created all of these distortions, that when you mess with Mother Nature, she gets her pound of flesh in the end. And we're seemingly getting to that point right now where being naked short is as stupid as a mud wall in a tornado. It really is, because if there's no gold and silver to get, if you're naked short on the LBMA and there's a delivery call and it's 6 weeks to get your metal, there's a problem there, right? So I don't know. I think things are going to get very interesting, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this is really just coming back because of the tariff threat, but I don't think it is.
So with BRICS discussing a commodities-backed currency, and as you mentioned, we're talking about gold-backed treasuries, which could lead to some kind of gold-backed digital currency that we would be able to rival that with. Do you think there's any chance of a repatriation prior to that from our government?
You mean like a confiscation?
Yes.
No, I don't. And a lot of gold companies who will try to sell you certain things will tell you and prey on that. I don't. I've always said, I've been consistent on hundreds and hundreds of videos saying my belief is they'll take the ETFs. Well, geez, who is the custodian of the ETFs right now?
Yeah,
that's JP Morgan. So you have all the financial advisors who, when I started in this industry 35 years ago, they weren't called financial advisors. They were called stockbrokers, and they made a percentage of every trade. Well, then came the internet and Scottrade, and that made being a stockbroker a dinosaur. So now you give free trades, and the money you make is a percentage of what's underneath. So I want to buy $2 million in gold, Mr. Fund Manager or advisor. No, you don't want to do that. The risk and the tax. Why don't we get you GLD and SLV? It'll track the price. It's easy. I can keep it under management. We'll watch it for you. It's quick and easy and clean. Okay, sure. So you have all of the money that goes into GLD and SLV. That's pretty damn close to the largest stockpile of silver and the fourth or fifth largest of gold, held with the pink bow wrapped around it, held by JP Morgan. In the prospectus, it does not give you and I the right to ever possess the gold. It does them and the ones that funded it to begin with. So on a Friday night, they come in and they close those two funds. They're sitting on all the gold, not coming to our three houses, people maybe who have NRA stickers on their window and going door to door and saying, give me your gold, when they can have it all in one fell swoop. And then they look the world in the face and they say, well, what?
It's in the contract.
We didn't do anything. We didn't break any laws. We didn't infringe any civil liberties. We closed the ETFs. You can still go and buy the stuff physically through a company like mine or the U.S. Mint subsidiaries, whatever you want. Go for it. So it's a way to have their cake and eat it too. So you confiscate all of this gold held by the cartel bank that paid the largest fine ever issued to the Justice Department for manipulating the market. Their head trader, I had lunch with about 20 guys once a few years ago, Michael Nowak. He's in prison still for running that little ring. And all I can tell you is that I think that to confiscate gold would be the end of the United States. If we did that, there would never be another country that would trust us again. If we nationalize assets and activate eminent domain from our own people, when countries like China and Russia are promoting it to theirs, we'd be looked at as a laughingstock. No one would ever trust us. Who wants to hold anything if you're we already have a bad rap with sanctions. Well, how about now we're going to confiscate those assets that you own in our country? Game over.
Yeah, it's wild. So with the movement of gold, we always see silver track, and sometimes at a lag. And you mentioned that a great portion of our silver comes from other countries, and I think two of the bigger countries are on the radar for BRICS, Mexico and Peru, if I'm not mistaken. Do you see any potential for those metals ever being used or weaponized against the U.S.?
Well, that's what they're doing. That's exactly what it is. I mean, Peru if you look at what China's doing, I think they built a deep sea port in Peru for them. That's what they do on the Belt Road. They go through and they industrialize these countries and build ports and bridges and maritime channels and gold and silver mines and help bring it to the marketplace in an effort to then have a piece of it. Peru is the second largest producer, or third largest. Actually, maybe they're number one. China's number two. It's either they might be number three. I think it's Mexico, China, Peru. And so interestingly enough, China has been spending the last year in Peru, and largely in Peru, but also in other countries in Latin America, going directly to the miners, disintermediating the marketplace. I did an interview with Sean Kuhn, who is the CEO of Dolly Varden. He said, Andy, it's insane. Chinese are going right to the miners, and they're buying all of the concentrate and doré. Doré is a bar that they will fashion that's probably 40% refined and pure, and then they send it for further refining after. Concentrate is a byproduct, all of that. It's like a sludge. They're paying double what the West will. They ship it home and refine it there. Almost 80% of all the industrial silver that China uses now comes from concentrate and doré. But when they buy that stuff, they're not buying it off a Western exchange. It is disintermediated from the price and the amount. They have no idea how much they're actually getting and refining. So yes, I do. And that is the whole concept. If you look at the Belt Road Initiative, it already represents 50% of global GDP, 75% of human population. And the whole thing is the countries, all of them are massively resource rich and underdeveloped. So we come in, China says, look, we're gonna do this for you. We're gonna build out your country. We're gonna modernize it, infrastructure it, build the roads, the bridges, the maritime channels. We're gonna patrol it with military and with commerce, and we're gonna help you bring all of these natural resources to the market. We want a piece. And by and large, for most of them, it works out well. There's always some bad stories in the mix, but if you look at the countries that are joining BRICS, they're all resource rich or have strategic shipping lanes, either on land or on sea, like the Red Sea, Straits of Hormuz. And look at, like I just said, Indonesia just became a full participant. They have the largest nickel deposit in ground in the world. So yeah, that is exactly what they're doing. Like Zoltan Pozsar said, Bretton Woods 3 is all about commodities. There's an old saying, he who has the gold makes the rules. I would say he who has the commodities makes the rules.
It's wild.
That is wild. That is wild. I love the way you explain it. I'm hoping our viewers are keeping up as fast as it's being spit out. But the way you explain it is very, very well done.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that, man. It's weird. This stuff goes through my head and like nonstop, because if I have the only thing that I can tell you maybe that has separated me from other people commenting in the space over the last several years is I've been able somehow, some way, and somehow I've been right on a lot of things by connecting the dots. And the thing of it is that a lot of the things that I just mentioned in and of themselves are important. But when you put them together, they create a picture that's like, whoa, wait a second. I mean, could it really be? Yeah. And maybe I'm too stupid to not realize that maybe I should wait till it develops before I say this stuff, like I did with the BRICS 4 years ago when everyone thought I was an idiot. I think right now there is a high probability that there is something far bigger. And if you look at the clues that were being given, simply Scott Bessent saying, we're going to monetize the asset side of the balance sheet. Just for fun one night, look at the assets on the U.S. government balance sheet. There's nothing to monetize but land and maybe the gold. What else are you going to monetize? There's only $5 trillion in assets. And, revalue gold that's at 42.22 on their balance sheet. Put it at $10,000 an ounce. You got 4 or 5 trillion free and clear to the treasury. Now you can start working your way out. And it's that simple. And if you're printing money anyway, who cares, right? And
well, like you said, the numbers are just they're just big. The numbers are huge.
Well,
what is it? 36 or 38 trillion now?
But a trillion doesn't phase people. But when you realize that a trillion seconds ago was 31,688 years ago, it ought to.
Yeah.
I mean, it's that big. It's, people work, and just about anyone who works till retirement will have made $1 million, right? They won't save it, but they'll make it.
Yeah,
it's
sure.
obtainable, right? Well, a trillion doesn't sound that big. It rhymes with million. It's 31,688 years ago in seconds. You couldn't, if you made a printer that printed dollars every second, 1, 2, 3, without stopping to reload ink or change paper, it would take you almost 32,000 years. So the numbers are obscene and they're too big. And there is no way, everyone focuses on 36 trillion. How about 99 trillion in Medicare Part B, IOU, 77 trillion in Social Security, 22 trillion in Medicare Part D, all the military and government pensions and the waste. Now, there's this guy that I just, as a side note, I love this guy. He's one of my favorite commentators. He's brilliant. I've had him on my show. I like to call him a friend, but he's one of the smartest guys out there. His name goes under the name of Johnny Bravo. Jay Bravo on YouTube.
Big hair.
He said something the other day that I haven't been able to validate. And it's not like him to say that anything that's not true. He said, the Clinton Foundation, Doge found got like $280 million that was supposed to go to Haiti. A lot of it did go to Haiti, but $3 million went to Chelsea Clinton's wedding and 10 to her mansion. Now, if that's really true, I mean, maybe we're finally getting somewhere to inspire trust. You throw these people in jail, that's criminal. And all criminal. Of the money that we've paid in taxes and all this horse shit that it's been given to, it's unbelievable. Yeah. It's treasonous. It's criminal. And then you have half of the Democrats still screaming like Cory Booker about doing this crap when they should be thanking this administration for getting this country back to the ideals that it was once founded upon. And I thank God that Trump is here to do that. But I will say this, if you don't question everything, including his motives, like, is he the Trojan horse or is he riding on it? Is there something that we're not seeing here? I don't know. Right. I'm just simply saying, if you don't question it, then you've learned nothing over the last 4 years, because everything they told us, everything seems to have been a lie. And that's now proving to be true. So hopefully this really is a change. Hopefully he is ridding the system of all this rot. But I'm telling you, and that doesn't change the reality of the monetary and fiscal issues that we have. And something like revaluing gold and doing something as crazy as beating the BRICS to it. Because remember, what did Dilma Rousseff, the former president of Brazil, the head of the BRICS New Development Bank, just tell us? We've agreed in principle, we the BRICS nations, of a new settlement currency called the unit. What is it backed by? 40% gold backed, deliverable upon request. And that's for the central banks, right? That's not for the people. They will trade on something called BRICS Pay, where no matter if you are in any of the BRICS countries, you can use your credit card or your app to seamlessly purchase things in which any of the BRICS countries like that. But for the central and commercial banks, it's 60% BRICS plus currencies, 40% gold back traded over Mbridge, which is a digital cross-border payment system. They're moving to a system backed by gold, which is what? The only other tier one asset in the world next to U.S. treasuries, over a transparent blockchain. They're going that way. So maybe he says, damn it, man, we better do this ourselves. Let's create a drive to get all the gold back here under the threat of these tariffs. Let's put JP Morgan in charge of the biggest ETF in the world. And they're custodians of other ETFs too, and SLV. And then let's talk about revaluing gold and pegging it to a new system so that we too can have trust in the global community. And maybe that's part of what he's talking to Xi Jinping about, saying, look, we're going to do this. Let's do it together. You guys have been buying all the gold. We're buying all the gold. Let's do this together. Maybe that's what he's doing. I don't know. See, I get to this point where I get all this and I'm like, they're doing something big. I don't know what it's big, but I go blank as to what the next step is. I don't know what he's going to do. I don't know if he's going to become allies with them, or it's gonna separate and West versus South or West versus East. I don't know, but something wickedly out of the ordinary is happening. That I do know, and something I believe bigger than what is being talked about is planned. I do believe that.
Well, it's definitely something that I'm going to pay more attention to, and I believe all of our viewers are going to be listening to as well. And hopefully they do.
How do you turn that off? Because obviously it's keeping me
right. Challenge in my life, brother. I spend 3 hours a day doing this, and I love to golf, and I love to ski and try and work out and try and be a husband and a father and friends. And it's hard. Time management, shutting it off. it's very difficult. But I guess I would say it this way. I am the American dream. I come from nothing. My family comes from nothing. My dad and I started this company in a one-room office. I talked with you guys about that before.
Yes.
Size of a closet. And I worked for most of my career, you know, scraping and struggling and working hard. And when it's your time, man. And you just got to do it. So I don't shut it off. And if there is a drawback to all this, it's that it's hard. I don't sleep very well, and I'm constantly thinking, and I don't know if it's a curse or a blessing. It's somewhere in between.
Well, I think for your viewers, it's a blessing because you're putting together, you're painting that picture for people who maybe it goes right over their heads. Because I know for me,
man, and it's genuine. Yeah. I do try. Like, you know, it's weird. I don't want to say that I'm supposed to be doing this or anything egotistical like that, but I ask myself a lot, like, why do you do this? Put yourself out there for people to say that, you know, become public. And I don't know. It's just, I don't know. Why did Noah do it? Why did Noah build the ark and scream? I'm not saying I'm Noah. All I'm saying is that I feel kind of like this is what I was meant to do. And I like to do it. You know, I like to dig and research and try to connect the dots. And maybe I should have been a CSI instead and, you know, gone home every night after work. But
well, I was going to say earlier, I feel like you are the sleuth of the precious metals community, that you do the digging and you find out the details and you're piecing them together and you're, for lack of better terms, you're exposing it so that, you know,
folks appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I appreciate that, man. Honestly, guys, I do. I mean, I hope it comes across genuine. I'm not the smartest. Look, I had great success in athletics and I've had great success owning this company for 35 years. Didn't come until just the last decade or so, but I'm not the smartest and never was the best athlete. I outworked everybody. And I was the first one at the baseball field, the last one to leave. I was the first one in the gym and the last one to leave. And the same thing is true. I mean, I think that's what bothered me the most, you guys, over the last 4 years, is that it pissed me off more than anything that we went from a world that was a meritocracy into one based on lifestyle. My parents were hippies when I grew up. I understand lifestyle, right? I ended up, you know, being a jock, but living in a world of hippie, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. I respect all of lifestyle. I don't care what you do or who you do it with. I'm all good with it. We'd still be friends. That's all good. But to take away the merit of hard work bothered me more than anything. And that to me is one of the things I'm most thankful about with Trump, is that he's going back to a system that rewards hard work and stick-to-itiveness, as my sixth grade teacher used to always say. I mean, just stick to it and work hard and let the laws of compounding of time and interest work in your favor instead of against you, and good things happen. It's like when I started my company, I probably told you guys this too when we spoke. My dad said, one rule, only one rule. He's been retired for 20 years. But he said, I'll fire you otherwise. So he ain't going to fire me anymore. But that rule was, you'll buy something every 2 weeks. And I have either 1 ounce of silver, I don't care, some form of gold and silver. And I've done that for 35 years. And I learned it's the best gift I've ever received in my life, the law of compounding, of time, of effort. And largely that's been lost in this country over the last several years as this instant gratification not being fast enough mentality will come back to haunt a lot of people. And my mentor, God rest his soul, Richard Russell, said, if you make 7% a year, you will go down as a legendary investor. And gold's averaged 9.9 for 25 years. It's ignored. It was up 30% last year. It's ignored. It's almost at 3,000. It's ignored because it ain't sexy like Nvidia and Bitcoin and Apple. Doesn't move massively in a day, maybe a couple percent. But it's the tortoise, not the hare. And I will tell you that the most powerful people in the world, the more things change, the more they stay the same. They are gobbling up gold and silver like it is the most important thing in the world. And they're doing it in a covert manner that I think is far from covert. It's screaming, but if you're only paying attention, and a well-read person, a really well-read person reading financial stuff is reading the wrong stuff and will never see this happening right out from underneath them because it's not being told to the public as to how many people even know gold is the only other tier one asset next to U.S. Treasuries. At the end of World War II, we became the only tier one asset item, the U.S. Treasury. Well, don't you think the American people should have been told in 2019 when the most powerful bank on the planet, the BIS, said, oh, by the way, gold is now tier 1? I don't know. That should have been on the front of every newspaper 4.5, 5 years ago. It ain't. It never was. And that's part of the reason you're seeing all the central banks buy and accumulate and repatriate, because it's tier 1. They don't want the other tier 1 U.S. Treasuries. Well, Judy says, well, maybe if we peg it to gold, they will. You can see how this is all coming together. Right. And, you know, I don't know what happens, fellas, but I'm telling you, it's bigger than just the Trump tariffs.
Andy, for our viewers, to be able to tap into your insight on a continual basis, do you have a newsletter or anything like that?
Well, no, I mean, I do 20 of these a week. Yeah. And now since June, I started my own channel. We're up to 33,000 subscribers, but I've been doing on shows like yours, literally up to 20 a week for the last 4 years. And
your channel will be linked here in this description. But also what I wanted to ask is, would you send me the link of the video you did? You held up her book. Send me that link, that conversation you had.
Yeah, I will. I will. It's the Miles Franklin YouTube channel, Judy Shelton. I'll send you the link.
It's there. I'll grab it.
She's an incredibly smart lady, as smart as they come, and said some really interesting things on that podcast. The other one that I would tell people to watch is the one I did with Francis Hunt, and Francis more or less told me that he believes Trump is the Trojan horse, not riding on it. And I'm not saying, look, the problem with this country over the last 4 years is that when the three of us were kids, our parents and us could talk, even if we had differing opinions, and no one got pissed off. Yeah. Right. Still hug it out. And well, that's all good. But now everyone's so pissed off that they don't listen to other viewpoints. And if you never listen to other viewpoints, you never grow. You learn more and more about less and less till you know everything about nothing. So I'm not saying I agree with him, but it was very, very interesting. I would say people might want to listen to that. But our website is milesfranklin.com. If folks are interested in metals, the best thing to do is to email us at info@milesfranklin.com and ask for our price list, which will be good or better than any company in America. We don't publish those prices for a myriad of reasons, a lot of them. And someday I'll explain them. It's very complex. Sure. It's not deceitful. I'll send you the price list, and we beat just about everybody. Or any questions they have, info@milesfranklin. If they want to put the Crucible Podcast in the subject line, it would be very helpful to us to know where it came from. There's no obligation for that. If you want to be contacted, put your phone number down, check your spam if you don't get it right away, because sometimes emails from a corporate server go to spam. Yep. And we'll contact you. My brokers, all of them have deep experience, ranging from private equity to Wall Street to Wharton School of Business, every one of them. And they all go back, most of them, to childhood with me. All very dear friends and family that later in life came to work with me. And it's been a blessing, but they treat my company as if it was their own. So you'll understand our strength is building relationships, no obligation, no pressure, and show you how to get the most gold and silver for the least premium in things that are very, very non-subjective and massively liquid. That's our game. That's what we do.
Beautiful.
Excellent.
I think this was great. And for those who couldn't keep up, hey, go back,
watch it again.
I'm sorry. I'm happy to come back on any other time.
Like I said,
I can dial it down a bit, but this is something that I'm telling you, man, it's got to be talked about now, because
for sure,
this is happening in hyperspeed.
We're going to keep an eye on it and maybe touch base and, give it another 2 weeks, a month, and see where we're at. And we go from there. If something comes up and you want to talk, hey, you got my number. Give me a shout.
Right on, guys. I wish you both well. Anything I can do, let me know. And thanks for having me on. It's always nice to talk with you, fellas.
The pleasure was ours. I would want to ask you if there's any one thing you'd want to give as a piece of advice to the viewers, but I think the whole episode was that. Like it was all great. Thank you.
I appreciate that very much. I mean, I don't know what other advice I would give other than to say, if the central banks are moving this hard to de-dollarize and accumulate assets, what does it say for saving your wealth in fiat? I think the most important thing you can do right now is to get out of the way of traditional assets and And if you've made a big profit in these traditional assets, fine, take some of that profit off. It's not a 4-letter word, right? It actually means you won when you pay your capital gains, which sucks. But take some of that profit, put it in gold and silver, take the chips off the table, put it in your pocket, leave your principal there if you want, and save some of your winnings. Don't be like everyone else that, like, you know, in Cisco way back when, rode it way up, thought they were wealthy as hell, then bang, what the hell just happened? I'm broke.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that's going to happen, but look, man, right now you have 6 insiders selling for every 1 buying. And by every historical metric and measurement, the market is as overvalued as it's ever been. So, you know, nothing wrong with taking some profit. And even if you sit on the sidelines and buy 30-day treasuries directly from US treasurydirect.gov, go right to the US government, buy really, really short-term treasuries. If you don't want to buy gold, you just want to get out of the system for a little bit, you disintermediate all the bank risk. Go right to the treasury. Lots of things you can do. These are things we can talk to people about. We're not financial advisors, but we're probably smarter than most of them because we're more open-minded.
Sure.
And we don't just focus on one area. But anything I can ever do, guys, have me back, and I'll look forward to picking up where we left off.
Thank you.
All right. Andy, Emil, you guys have yourself a great night. All right.
You as well.
You
All
guys
right.
take it easy.
Later on.
Bye-bye.